All right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Beyond Baroque Literary Arts Center. Thank you so much for being here. Welcome to the Wanda Coleman Theater. My name is Quentin Ring. I am Beyond Baroque's Executive Director, and we are here tonight to celebrate Lynne Thompson's new book, Blue on a Blue Palette. So really thrilled to have Lynne here. We also have Pam Ward. It's going to be a great reading. We're going to have a little bit of conversation. But before we get into it, I just wanted to say a few words. First of all, this reading and conversation is being filmed, not just our normal streaming, but we're trying to capture the event for a little bit of a film about Beyond Baroque that we're doing. So mostly it'll be shot from the back, but during the conversation, the camera will be a little bit mobile. And so I hope that doesn't feel like it's interfering with anybody too much. If you have any concern about being on film, it's going to be pretty dark, but please let us know afterwards if you have any concerns whatsoever. Also wanted to begin by acknowledging Beyond Baroque's presence here on Tongva lands. We acknowledge the wrong done to indigenous peoples through settler colonialism, genocidal practices, and the violent dispossession of their lands. As an arts organization, Beyond Baroque is committed to uplifting indigenous writers and communities. As most of you know, Beyond Baroque is a space dedicated to the artistic possibilities of language. We support poets, writers, artists. We have a variety of programs that do that. We have a workshops program, of course, our Monday night fiction workshop program, our Wednesday night poetry workshop program as well. We have individual master classes, one coming up in not too long with Louis Resto. And we also have a reading and performance series. We are here in this theater pretty much every weekend of the year, often as tonight on Thursdays as well, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We do have some really great programs coming up. Tomorrow, Friday night, we have J. Ryan Straddle and Lou Matthews, as well as the poet Allison Turner. Jay Ryan's launching a new book. And then on Saturday, we have a little bit of a double header. We have Stacey Levine and Douglas Messerly, Green Integer Press. And then in the evening, we have Dorian Locks, Dion Riley, and Michelle Bidding as well. So that's going to be a fun day. Yes, so please do come back for that. Then after that, we are taking a little bit of a break in the first week of July, so we'll be dark for about a week, the week of July 4th. But do check back on our website or social media to see what's going on in the rest of July. I should mention also this event is free, and we really rely on our members to help keep these events free. If you're not a member, or if you were a member and you've lapsed, we'd be very appreciative if you would consider becoming a member again tonight. You can see Genesis in the bookstore. They can help you out. You can also do it online. If you become a member here in the bookstore, you will get a free tote bag, Beyond Baroque tote bag, to buy a lot of books and take them home with you. And to those of you who are members, thank you. It really keeps everything we do going. In fact, I should give one more update. We are actually getting a new roof starting next week, too. So if you are back here in the next few weeks, it will look extremely grungy, but we'll have a nice new roof, and we'll be very grateful that when it rains. I want to say thank you to our staff as well. Eric Alberg, who's running things from the booth, Jimmy Vega, our Associate Director, Michelle Raphael, our Development Director, definitely Yvonne Salinas, our Programs Manager, who helps put all these together, and definitely Genesis, our Programs and Bookstore Assistant. Beyond that, I think I just want to get into the program. Really thrilled to have Lynne here. We've actually got one of the great sort of 1-2 punches in Los Angeles poetry. We've got Pam Ward and Lynne Thompson. Really thrilled to be able to celebrate Lynne's new book. And this is something we've been looking forward to for a long time. So without further ado, I think I'm going to bring Pam Ward up to get us started. And then after that, Lynne's going to read. Writer-designer Pam Ward just released her poetry book, Between Good Men and No Man at All, from the World Stage Press. She's published 2 novels, Want Some, Get Some, and Bad Girls Burn Slow from Kensington. She's a UCLA graduate, a recipient of a California Arts Council Fellowship, a Pushcart Poetry nominee, and she has published in Chiron, Calyx, Voices of Leimert Park, and the LA Times. She's currently working on a novel about her aunt Stallions, the Black Dahlia murder, an event that shocked the nation and happened in Pam's own neighborhood. It was always love to have Pam Ward here, so please do welcome Pam to the stage.
But that's okay. I'm so happy to be here on this stage in the Wanda Coleman Theater and to be introducing my homegirl, Lynne, LA girl. I mean, what a career, poet laureate. Oh, it's just amazing. She's like an idol to me, and for all writers. I don't know if you went to the event. Lynn was talking about it at the library that she put on, and it was like an honor to host almost every poet in Los Angeles, and how she corralled all those cats, I will never know. But anyway, I'm going to read a few poems because I just want to get right to Lynn, who is right there in front. All right, so this is called, too long, not going to read that. This is called Drop It Like It's Hot. If you ever dropped your daughter alone at a mall, 15, ponytail, lip gloss and jeans, dropping her alone to shop, dropping her unleashed to meet a friend, leaving her scrubbed, shiny and young, a pan of hors d'oeuvres, wearing her dyed and went straight to heaven grin. If you ain't ever cheesed a lie and waved bye, y'all have fun, did a long fake out waltz like you strolled to your car, doubling back, watching them stop at hot dog on a stick, where their soft kiss spears your own lung. Becoming bloodhound, watching them roam, stalking coats, shoes, or scarves. Becoming mall cop, espionage mama, a female James Bond. Feeling a time bomb tick in your bra. If you ever clocked a walk, hunted behind t-shirts and feet, feeling the raw heat of murder while smelling fries and Dior, teetering between slaughter and Lord, please make the boy sweet, creeping around Foot Locker or Starbucks corners, pretending to like shit you don't need, eavesdropping while pretending to read. If you ever dropped your daughter and fell on all fours, sniffing up pretzel blood, letting your hem lick the floor, forgetting you wore a skirt, stifling growls between molars, hounding C's candy teen love, going store after store, then baby, you ain't never lived. Thank you. So staying with the kids, this is called baton lessons. I took 2 baton lessons and quit, leaving the steel rod next to the ice skates and bike I'd already abandoned for good. It wasn't until Leslie moved in next door that I finally used it again. Leslie liked to talk shit, popping gum in my face, splattering her slob on my neck. But one day I snapped, ran home and grabbed my baton, put on my pink tights, glitter top, and walked back outside and whopped her right there on the street. I remember gripping it exactly the way I'd seen Willie Mays, then twirling it like in a parade. Mama made me apologize that time, dragging me down to their house, lecturing about stones and sticks. But secretly, I was proud she got me those lessons. You never know what tricks come in handy. And then on my last one, a little one, he threw a typewriter at me from the upstairs front window. Now use that in a poem, you bitch. So I did.
Everybody. Thank you, Pam. All right. So now I'm very pleased to be able to introduce Lynne Thompson, who was Los Angeles' 2021-2022 Poet Laureate. Yes. It's still kind of our Poet Laureate. I mean, I think, yeah. And she is a Poet Laureate Fellow of the Academy of American Poets. She is the author of 3 collections of poetry: Beg No Pardon, winner of the Perugia Press and Great Lakes College New Writers Award, Start with a Small Guitar, and most recently, Fretwork, winner of the 2019 Marsh Hawk Poetry Prize, selected by Jane Hirschfield. a Pushcart Prize and Best of the Net nominee, Thompson is the recipient of multiple awards, including an Individual Artist Fellowship from the City of Los Angeles, the Tucson Literary Festival Poetry Prize, and the Stephen Dunn Poetry Prize, as well as fellowships from the Summer Literary Studies to study in Kenya and the Vermont Studio Center. An attorney by training, Thompson sits on the boards of the Poetry Foundation, Cave Canem, and the Los Angeles Review of Books. In June of 2022, she completed her 4-year service as chair of the Board of Trustees at Scripps College, her alma mater. Her most recent work can be found or is forthcoming in the Literary Journal's Best American Poetry, Kenyon Review, The Common, the Massachusetts Review, and Copper Nickel, and the anthology Beat Not Beat, amongst others. She's very accomplished, but it always feels like family having her here. So please, everyone, do welcome Lynne Thompson to read from her new book.
It does feel like family, and thank you to all of you for coming out tonight, and those of you on live stream or YouTube or whatever platform. I can never remember what to call it anyway. It's nice to be here tonight, and it's a reminder that if you don't answer your emails from Beyond Baroque, you don't update your bio, because now I have 4 books. And this is the latest, Blue on a Blue palette. It's for sale in the bookstore. Plug the book, plug the book, plug the book. And so I'm going to be reading from it tonight. It's a book about women, our rage, our joys, our sexuality, our aging bodies, etc. So that's the background. And I noticed that so many of my poems reference blue, which wasn't one of my favorite colors, but is rapidly becoming one. So let me start with this. A Rage on Berbice, 1763. Before I was north and south of a new country, I was divided from. I was a tactic. I was a slave trading port. Before I was remade as Amerindian, I was sugar as the main crop. Before I was overworked and underfed, I was selected for immediate punishment, persuaded to remain a wooden gutter for collecting rainwater, ruled by terror and customary understandings before I was replenished by the arrival of 2 more ships. Before I was left for dead by frightened Europeans was before I was something black at the bottom of a buyer's cup. Before I was high up river in the jungle, I was silver and gold and a bounty paid to soldiers, prepared fields farther inland, the quarters where we captives slept. I was the fort burned and abandoned before I joined the Arawaks and squatted with a knife in my hand. Before I was traumatized woman hoping to make my way, I was the turning of the tide. Before I was awakened in the middle of the night, I was bloodshed on the captain's bedclothes. Before I escaped the cooking pot full of Negro flesh, before I declined to implicate the others, before I was witness to the executions of the women rebels and sentenced to vigilante injustice, I was a daughter who spelled you my name phonetically. I was woman with child, whose children's children have lived to tell you this.
Wow.
That poem came from a book, Blood on the River, that was actually about this rebellion on Berbice, which is now Guyana in South America. So I was debating whether to read this poem, but Pam makes me sassy. So one of my nephews told me, he said, Auntie Lynne, the poetry, it's all fine and everything, but you really got to sex it up. Alrighty. Of course, then he was mortified when I did. Anyway, so this book is a tribute to Michael. Among Peaches. I don't care that I'm old. I still want to fuck, and I don't mean some old lady make love as though I need a doily to perch my ass on. I want to fuck with fury and sweat rolling down the legs of us both, the mixture and emollient for brittle bones. And if my love dog is as old as I am, I don't want him to show it, or to complain, or to say we have to wait for the Viagra to kick in for desire to erect his nipples. I want him to be struck by a sudden urge, if I haven't been struck first, then take me in the stockroom of Pavilion's Market. I want to be so surprised that when I reach out, I bring down a whole crate of peaches. I want to bite his lip to keep him from screaming his pleasure upon seeing my salt and pepper nest. I want him to drink the joy I've daubed on just below my breasts, just in case. And I want him to let me put my mouth everywhere and do what I declined to do in my youth, and twice. I need a nocturne to turn me around that won't turn me loose, to bring me to the hard edge. And when the stock boy comes upon us, his arms full with boxes, the latest shipment of sweet fruit, when he can't decide if he wants to take photos to post on Instagram or to run away in terror, I will tell him, pray you get this lucky in years that will simply slip off and bruise you the way peaches bruise. That was really based on seeing a man and woman come out of the bathroom in the supermarket, and they looked too happy. I said, I know what y'all been up to in there. Excuse me. I said, This next piece, I think, is a form that I invented. It's cento or cento, depending on who you talk to, which is nothing more than a patchwork of the work of other poets, in this case, 2 poets. But it's in the form of a pantoum, so I'm calling it a centum. And it takes the work of Diane Seuss and Terrence Hayes. It doesn't get much better than that. Frankly, when asked about the autonomy of my body, I consider my inner assassin, as inside me is a black-eyed animal, the umbilicus from which everything originates. I have no origin story, unburdened by conscience, like a baby, the umbilicus from which everything originates. I wonder if Jesus wants souls like the devil does, unburdened by conscience, like a baby, the list of pallbearers still in a drawer somewhere. I bet you shapeshifters want souls like devils do, their hinges turning, the list of pallbearers still in a drawer somewhere, an existential jambalaya. Their hinges turning, a clamor of voltas, or some existential jambalaya. My only fear of a virtuous mob, a clamor of voltas, shaped like a silver tongue. My deepest fear, a virtuous mob of mother wit and mother woe. Shaped like a silver tongue, I have no origin story of mother wit and mother woe. Inside me is a black-eyed animal. Thank you. All right, so as Pam said, we're in the wonderful Wanda Coleman Theater. I know she's smiling somewhere saying, and one of my favorite poems of hers is the one about the car that she talks about driving in LA. And if you're an LA poet, some of us feel like you really have to write about the freeways. So that's what this is. Red Jasper. Swift Coronas and vintage Mercedes-Benzes serenade, piston strumming piston as they cruise Highway 134. Radios blare the twin talk of the born again and arena football. James the Godfather croons, "This is a man's world" for the lady boomers who still believe it as they veer south onto the 5, skirt Chavez Ravine, and every displaced Ruiz, Ramos, and Rodriguez built into fields of faux diamonds for all the boys who pray to play past summer. Every driver slows for the cops and 18-wheelers, loops the river Los Angeles with its confessions buried in concrete under a stubborn scent of smog, last bloom of jacarandas, and can't squeeze a drop of rain until tomorrow. Some of us turn north onto the 110 and head for our weekend, so there's simply no reason for all this horsepower to come to such a hard stop just south of the Arroyo Seco, except that yesterday, minutes fell back into the groove they came from. And today, rush hour finds itself shrouded in a dark so black, all we can see in the early November sky is a hunter's moon, that orange-red gem, that highwayman gathering up our lost seasons. That did happen. It was the biggest bleeping moon I ever saw. And speaking of moons, I wrote this because someone said never write about the moon. How can we think of the moon? Now that we are woke, we are sleepier than ever. Now that we are lit, we are asbestos to be got rid of. But aren't we still brown cow, how? Aren't we still pattern and ninth grade? And what of the tides? How will they be moved? What of cheese? What of the darker side of our dreams, no longer hanging in the sky, placed solely on the face of the other, and maybe on the face of another moon? See Ganymede, Europa, Callisto, the same way Hubble did. Hubble, who had an idea, though it never stopped the dogs from howling, because, and today, moon is farther from. Pink moon, marquee moon, moon, river, and thank you, Hank Mancini. How will sky know its neighborhoods if its moons become gerrymandered? What of June? Maybe May will meet July, and let us go to the moon, Alice. Let us go where we will fall again and then into moon's eyes. So I always want to read something for the family, who periodically will look at me and say, "You haven't written anything about me." Ode to Bones. The brothers gave me the nickname Bones, presumably because when they looked at me, they thought, she is nothing but skin and. The playwright Titus Plautus gets the credit, earned or otherwise, for saying your name is your destiny. But what, after all, can Romans tell us today? Suppose instead that a name is the past to come to build a bridge to cross over. If this is true, I could be the bones of my parents' beloved carib birds, a lesser Antillean tanager, Cuban grassquit, Jamaican crow. The bones of ancestors stolen from Africa, the Hottentot teal, brown booby. Or maybe, after all bones are just playing into the game of dominoes, where the goal is to get the die from the boneyard. On the other hand, it could be that music makes all the difference. This old man, he played one, give a dog a bone. This old man, he played 5 with a knick-knack paddywhack. And never forget to look in your kitchen, to put bones in your stock, bones to add flavor to a mirepoix, calcium, phosphorus, magnesium. To use a bony knife to separate the flesh of the salmon or trout or bass. Their bones may be as small as yours or mine, stupendous, to keep the voices in your head from driving you crazy, or as large as the femur or tibia, each fighting for supremacy. Those bones. So I wanted to write a poem that evoked at least a little bit what's happening at the border, because I have a firm belief that when these children are grown, they're going to kill us all. Seeking paradise. Don't tell me how I came to be born by a river. Instead, won't you bring me honeysuckle and applause of Mexican marigolds? Tell me how stardust bequeaths its anthems and will not die, so you can bring me a rebanada de cielo that stopped its weeping. Tell me Sam Cooke had it right, singing, "A change is gonna come." But do not tell me about a child who's crossed the Rio Grande to taste U.S., but who's been lost to her mother, doesn't know when she will eat again. Don't you know this girl will remember and then, without warning, kill you as you sleep between your twisted sheets? I wish you would bring us jalapenos baked into sweet cornbread, and with it, some green tomatoes, capers, a subtle Casa Madero. Won't you bring us memories of a dog, a ball, and all of Saturday to do what children want Saturday to do? Why can't you be kind? Why won't you in paradise us? Just a few more, and then Pammy and I are going to have a little conversation. I read this online, so if you heard it before, this is a good time to go to the bathroom. But since yesterday was Juneteenth, I read this poem for BOA, which is the publisher of this book, but I want to read it again. Our ancestors, enslaved once, said Juneteenth would never be, oh say can you see. But then they said, my name is George, died with your knee on my neck. My name is Brianna, shot while asleep in my bed. My name is 9 worshipers at Emmanuel AME Church. And my name is quite young, like Trayvon, like Tamir. They said, my name is Homer Plessy and Lloyd Gaines. My name is Diane Nash and Murley Evers. They said, my name is Tulsa and Rosewood and Devil's Punch Bowl Natchez, is strange fruit and eyes turned toward Canada. My name is Taste of Gullah, of filet gumbo, is scar and rice seeds, is families torn, and may I have permission? And they also said, my name has never been nigger gal or boy. My name is Henrietta Marie, alarm, rattler, and bones and bolts waiting to be found at the bottom of the sea. My name is Angola. My name is Senegambia. Then they said, in dawn's early light, we will celebrate and celebrate, however it is we choose to. And thanks. Just 2 more. This is also a cento relying on the words of Langston Hughes, who's maybe one of the very first poets my dad read me as a girl. Langston won't stay in his grave, calls me rose of neon darkness, calls himself early blue evening, black smoke of sound, says we are related, you and I, reminds me we are wandering in the dark, our faces a chocolate bar, facing the night of 2 moons. And though I'm a lonely little question mark, he laughs. Life is for the living with gypsies and sailors. Till the old junk man death plants your feet in the cool swamp mud, Shake your brown feet, honey. Wander through this living world. Get out the lunchbox of your dreams. Stay awake all night with loving, or be a woman in the doorway. Death don't ring no doorbells or say, here is that sleeping place, as though it was some noble thing. Think how thin and sharp the moon is tonight. Don't mind dying, veiling what darkness hides. Haunt like mystery, like a naked bone in gumbo. Nod at the sun. And I'll close with this one. Thank you. Thanks again for being such a good audience. Many of us in this room know Peter Harris. Peter's had some health challenges, but he's a fighter. And I talked with him not too long ago. He's doing much better, but still having to fight. As you may know, Peter started a program, the Black Man of Happiness Project, because he was tired of Black men being so tragically depressed all the damn time. So he was looking for joy. And so I wrote this poem for him, and it's the last poem in the book. Say hallelujah, because it strikes me I ain't written no praise songs yet. I got laurels and a two-step platform, but damn if I deserve them when I ain't written no praise songs after living long as this. Look at this Black man of happiness, refusing to be otherwise, refusing to let any of us look away unless we look like we've just stepped from a pool of joy. He's the joy boy, and I ain't writ a single word of praise, but time is a wizardly woman and always on time. So praise the grenadines, where my folks washed up on a strand of sand their souls returned to a long time come. Who birthed so many generations you just have to say hallelujah, 'cause they came California and made me sequoia and stole from the Colorado River. Made me blue-eyed Junco and Watts Towers, the Dunbar Hotel on Central Avenue and the Oyama tree. Ditto Central Avenue near the old Buddhist temple, torn down now, but praise be the Oyama, still standing, as well as the cactus, the jacaranda, the palm, the pine. Praise my misplaced pining for paper. Trees have gifted us, leading me to praise the reading of books. Started with Little Women, then moved on to Cherry Ames' Nurse, Christie's Poirot, then anyone else required by my schooling, and who rereads any of them? No one. So I moved on to wanting to find someone who looks like me in a book. So praise Zora Neale, praise Pauli Murray, praise Jane Cortez, come to my college, and damn, and praise be to becoming, and didn't I become a woman, not yet up to the challenge of my body, but praise be the boys who thought I was. And for this body, praise, for its transfigurations, and for giving a middle finger to pains that try to bend it down. Oh, and praise every chord of music and drum of my heart, flute ooze from my fingertips. Praise the oboe and the trumpet, and who the hell could have imagined a Miles or a Diz or a Shirley Horn, and thank you and sweet journey to them all. Plus, praise Donny Hathaway, who rightly sang, giving up is hard to do, putting me in mind of my brother, passed on to plunking the ivories, mood indigo, which is one reason I am writing this praise song for daisies, blue flax, daffodils, meaning I praise our friendship, Mr. Black Man of Happiness. Praise, finally, for friendship's hungriest hanger-on, love. Praise for those I loved who didn't love me back. Praise for the lovers who cannot be forgot, for the lovers who still bring a boil to the blood, that sanguine fluid, crazy giver of numbered days and unnumbered regrets. Praise for the inhale, the X, little heave of chest, praise this too short life. Thank you. Come sit with me, Pammy. Why are we so far apart?
Another round of applause for Lynne, please. Yes, thank you, Lynne. Let's go do a little scene change, and we'll have a little conversation. So.
Great. I'll move to you and Pam says she had questions.
You can move closer if you want.
I have questions. Lynne, is that your real name? I feel like I'm
It is
interrogating
a real name,
It is a real name.
but my birth name is Pamela.
Now, I think that's interesting. My
Because
birth name is Pamela.
see, everything
Her
happens
birth
for a
name
reason.
is Pamela. Has nothing to do with my questions. All right. What I did want to know, but you all need to note that. What I wanted to ask you, you started with beg no pardon, then start with a small guitar, have them both. But really, you started off as an attorney.
Yes.
Can you tell me how you made your poetry transition? And one quick question about that. Did you ever find reading law like reading short stories?
Sometimes. I still can't find the case because at the time I wasn't thinking I was going to be a poet or try to be a poet. The case is from 1920, sometime in the 20s. And it was the case of a prostitute. She was the defendant. And the judge said to her, and I've never forgotten this phrase, I think it's just the most amazing thing, that this woman was a foul cistern to newt and gender in. Which is horrible, but what language, right? I mean, so I'm focused on that. I should have known early on that something was going to happen because I had a case and I had to file a motion, blah, 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 who cares, and submitted it. The judge said to me, Miss Thompson, I've read your brief and it's lovely. It's just beautifully written. It's wrong, and I'm denying your motion, but it really is lovely. And I thought, what is wrong with this picture? So anyway, I literally woke up one day and I said, well, I think I'll be a poet now. To which my mother said, oh, Jesus. Oh, my God, what is wrong with this woman?
And speaking of poetry, we are buying this book tonight, aren't we? Some of us have already had them in our purse. I know. And blue on a blue palette. Regarding region, all right, we're both LA girls. I know you're from Pasadena. Yeah, my dad's from Pasadena. Do you ever feel like you are repping LA as a poet laureate when you go out? And why do you think Los Angeles writers are important?
I certainly felt like I was repping LA. In fact, I was told that I was repping LA when I was the poet laureate. But, you know, for me, you don't really appreciate your city till you go somewhere else. And it doesn't have the variety of foods we have, for example.
Yeah, that's true.
That's on the bad side of the ledger. It doesn't have the freeways we have. That's on the good side of the ledger, right? But you realize your city when you're somewhere else. And certainly, other than New York, I really don't find any place else quite as diverse as LA. Until about a month ago, I was in London, and that is really diverse in a more obvious, integrated way than we are. Why is it important to be an LA poet? I think it is still the case, this may be my bias, that people think of writers as East Coast denizens. And the rest of the country, what do we eat, chopped liver? You know, there's no, maybe if you're from Chicago, but every place in between New York and Hawaii is like a wasteland when it comes to writing. I think that's much better than it was 50 years ago because we have publishers like What Books Press that's in the house, shout out for them, yes, they deserve applause, as well as the press associated with Beyond Baroque and others, really focusing on California writers and writers of the Western region. So it's important for people to understand we got culture.
Okay.
We got culture. We can write. We know sentences.
That's right.
We know, meter and rhyme and all of that. We can do that. So, as I said, I think it's much better than it was. But I think we need to make sure that we continue to have our voices heard.
That's right.
Whatever our community is, none of us are from just one community. We're from a bunch of communities, and those voices and stories need to be told.
And piggybacking on that, where were you the night on November 24th? No, just kidding. All right. This is actually on form. You do sonnets. You do centos. You do abecedarians. Is there a form that you like? Or are you exercising the genre? Or flexing your poetic muscle?
Check. I think I started out by saying, I don't want a writing form. I just want to be free on the page. I want to be free. The truth was I was scared of form. And I wasn't going back to school. I had been to school. I have just paid off my law school debts. I'm not going back to school. So I didn't know a lot of things that people pick up with their PhDs and MFAs, et cetera. And I was scared of it. But once I started writing in form, I really loved it because it gave me interesting ways to express myself and surprise myself.
Yeah.
And then I decided, I don't know if it was when Terrence came up with his American sonnets. It's had to have been before then. I thought, well, I can make up a form. So that's why I have this centum in the book. Not in the book is centostina, which is a sestina and a cento that I wrote for Suzanne Lummis.
Oh.
So I like now mixing up the forms. And then I realized I don't have to write just one poet. I can put a bunch of poets in one cento, right? So I'm kind of off to the races with it now. I do love abecedarians. They're a real challenge.
Mm-hmm.
I just wrote my first golden shovel. It's not quite where I want it to be, but I fulfill the requirements of the form.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I like the challenge of it. I'm a puzzle person, and for me, it's like putting a puzzle together.
I think it's great. And in her new book, Blue, on a Blue Palette, I adore the title. It is a nod to blues. We are of blues people. I think Amari Baraka has a book called Blues People. And I was wondering if you could say a few words about the book's meaning, or when you compiled this whole collection, what were you thinking?
So while I was serving as the poet laureate, of course, I get appointed in the middle of the pandemic, but we won't talk about that.
We won't talk about that.
Anyway, of course, this is when they would appoint me.
Of course.
I was trying to do laureate things, and I wasn't really writing as much. And one of our beloved poets, David St. John, said, Lynn, this is the time for you to look at your poems and put them together as a manuscript and send them out. And, I was whining, I don't have a book. He said, oh my God, just look at the poems. And when I did that, I realized that a lot of them were about women, the various aspects that I described at the top: aging, sexuality, religion is in there, family is in there, relationships are in there. And I said, there may be something here. And then I realized there were also a lot of references to the color blue, which wasn't a plan, but it was just there, either blue or the blues. So those things melded, and voila.
Speaking of that, the book is there's so many layers to the poems. There's music, there's odes to people, there's symphonies. And so speaking of origin, Ruth Padel, she's a great-great-granddaughter of Charles Darwin, said, a blank page always provokes a nudge of resistance, like a donkey refusing to step on a bridge. In that sentiment, what or how does a poem originate for Lynne Thompson?
I've tried to really hone my listening skills. And they're great snatches of conversation that you just in the back of your head think, oh, that's got to be in a poem. I remember specifically when my mom passed, everybody's boo-hooing and we're trying to figure out how we're going to bury her and blah, blah, blah. And my sisters-in-law and I were in my mom's room, and my brother came in and he said, well, aren't we having a closed casket? So I said, yeah. He said, let's bury her naked.
Oh.
And I remember, even as the tears were streaming down my face, I was thinking, that is so going to be in a poem. Oh my God. It's just too good.
It is.
Because there is no way in hell I was going to bury my mother naked, because she would be up here right now saying, I cannot believe that child buried me naked. And so when I wrote the poem, I have 4 older brothers. When I wrote the poem, my brother said, I can't believe that you said that. I said, I didn't say your name. But I use that as an example of how rich just overhearing conversations can be and how triggering that can be for all of us as poets. And I try to read a lot of things that aren't poetry. So I try to read science-related books, because there are a lot of really good, juicy words in there, right?
Yes.
There's a poem in here that uses, and I know I didn't know this, I stole this from somewhere, Stephanatus floribunda. Oh. How beautiful is that, right? Beautiful. So I really do try to find just interesting language in unexpected places.
And you do blend that sort of unexpected places with the personal. So in the new book, there's many good
Hold
poems
up the book at all times.
on every pages, and I noticed that there's, with the personal reference, there's Melancholia, the poem about the inner assassin, which you read. I'm so glad you did. Personal favorite of mine, a birth mother wears a costume her daughter never fits into. Do you find strength in reading these pieces of personal reference, or do these poems sometimes give you pause or maybe a sense of freedom?
They gave me pause originally. Mm-hmm. Someone who's not here tonight, Sarah McClay, I don't think Sarah's here, gave an exercise, and everybody knows I never do the exercise. But anyway, she gave an exercise that we were supposed to Google our names and imagine, when we found a person with our name, imagine that person writing to us or we're writing to that person. Well, I knew that my birth name was Pamela Marie. And when I was adopted, Lynne Thompson came. And I realized, Pamela never really got to say anything to anybody. So I decided to give Pamela a voice. And she was pissed. She's like, you think you're all that? You ain't all that. Let me tell you how you started. And it's the only poem I've ever written that came out whole, because I had empowered this voice to come out. And so fine, I wrote it. And then I wouldn't read it because I thought people wouldn't get it. Like, they'd be confused. Who's talking? What's going on? And then I found out, people aren't stupid, Lynn. Give them some credit. And they really liked it. So it empowered me to write poems that are difficult, but that I need to say this. Yeah. I need to get this out.
Yeah. It's a side note. She's Pamela Marie. I was supposed to be Pamela Marie, but someone else had Marie, which is my grandmother's name. So I'm Pamela Therese, my grandmother's middle name. So we were almost even named the same. All right. So speaking of the personal and how it might be political, I'm thinking of Ann Petrie, who wrote The Streak, a woman's story of vulnerability. But mostly I'm thinking of your beautiful poem, Self-Portrait Without Context, which
without contact
amazingly,
lenses.
Without contact lenses, amazingly is in this book. And do you draw connections with your personal struggles to societal ills?
Oh, God, yes. For one reason is, every time you want to moan and groan, remember that whatever it is you're feeling, there are a million people probably feeling the same thing. Different countries, different ways, but at the bottom, they're feeling the same things, right? So you're not alone. So every time I want to moan and groan, I'm thinking, really, Lynn? Really?
Yeah. Because
you're pretty good. People have real problems. As my mother used to say, you want a problem? I'll show you a problem. Right. People have real problems, right? So, I do want to evoke as much empathy as I can, because I think that's the only way we kind of get along, is trying to understand what someone else is struggling with, because often you can't see what that is. You just have to work to try to figure that out and be as empathetic as possible.
Right.
So, yeah.
And lastly, before I let you have the closing words, I'm thinking of poetry, I'm thinking of disruptors, writers who press the envelope, engage, and rage, writers like bad feminist Roxane Gay, who's currently at a festival called the Festival of Dangerous Ideas. Do you think poetry, as an art form, is also a tool, a sword, something to manipulate change? Question.
I absolutely do. Yeah.
She's so much fun.
Yeah.
I love it. And this is the book.
You're coming with me wherever I go.
It's so much fun.
So yeah, I do think it can be, it doesn't have to be. And yet, even as I say that, if you take a haiku about a butterfly, you really think about what they're saying. It's like, what's the principle? If a butterfly flies over here, then there's an earthquake over here. What's that called?
Oh.
Butterfly effect. Yeah, okay.
Yes.
That it can evoke change. If one person reads it and it affects them, whether it's humorous, serious, sexy, profane, out and out political, if it affects one person, that person goes out into the world, and something about that affect is then visited on the next person they talk to. So I do think it can be something for big change, but even small changes, and maybe mostly small changes, are really important for each individual, because it's going to change how we interact with each other and how we see each other and how we understand each other and how we understand ourselves. There are times when I'll finish a poem and say, I didn't know I thought that.
Yeah.
It was in there somewhere. And by writing, it came out. So absolutely.
Wow, we should almost end there, but we're not. The last thing I want to say before we go and buy the book is, as a poet, and you are owed the last words, do you have any, letters to a young poet, do you have any ideas or information you'd like to pass on to a writer? And if you want to skip that, just tell us what's on the next agenda for Lynne Thompson.
Well, I do have an idea for a new book.
Let's hear that.
Actually.
That's what I really wanted to ask.
That I don't want to say too much about,
Just
but
give us a hint.
it is about, so I was able to meet my birth family. It turned out that my birth grandmother's maiden name was Thompson. So those of us who believe in spiritual whatevers, I always think it was like, if let's use God just as a placeholder or your person of choice, said, oh, I want her to be a Thompson, but not over there. I think she should be over here. Anyway, when I met her, she said, I really don't have a gift to give you, but she handed me an envelope where she could trace her roots back to Canada, where she was born, and to the man I call myself the original African who came from Madagascar. He was sold into slavery first in Barbados and then resold into America. So needless to say, there are stories there to tell, and I want to explore that a little bit. But in terms of advice, I'm going to try this out on you guys because I'm doing a workshop next week, so I hope none of those people are on this live stream. But I think the thing I always remember that I've used as a guidepost is when I first decided I wanted to write seriously, I went to the Community of Writers, which is up in Tahoe. I was very nervous. I said, I know they only let me in here to fill a quota because I don't know anything.
I think Janet Fitch is in there.
Janet Fitch, she wasn't there the first time that I went, but, so I was very like, I don't know anything. I don't know anybody. I think Sarah McClay and Jim Nuttall and I ended up staying in the same house. But Bob Hass, who was then the Poet Laureate of the country, was there leading the workshops. And the workshop facilitators would always write a new poem every day, as were each of the students, we were each required to write a new poem every day.
Wow.
So because I'm just a real jerk, I went up to him and I said, well, I guess it's easy for you to whip out a new poem every day. And he said, Lynn, I can't believe you're still telling this story, but I tell it because it's just so fundamentally true. He said, it's twice as hard for me as it is for you. And I said, well, how can that be? He said, because I'm the fucking poet laureate.
Hello.
And he said, let me tell you something. He said, there's no difference. He said, no. He said, I may have a few tools that you have yet to learn. He said, but we both sit down with a blank sheet of paper.
That is so true.
He said, and it's harder for me because also, in addition to the blank sheet of paper, I have the weight of expectations because I'm the poet laureate. So can't I just whip something out? And as I like to say to friends who ask, I said, there's no whipping. What whipping? There's no whipping. But I always remembered that, you know, we have poets that we admire and that we love and that we try to emulate them. You know, some of you know Patricia Smith is one of my best friends, and I hate her, really, because, you know, Patricia can whip out a poem. I have actually seen her whip out a poem. It really pisses me off. But you know, we should have writers that inspire us to do something we haven't done, try something we haven't tried. But at the end of the day, we all have a blank sheet of paper. And I can't think of anything more encouraging than knowing that someone I admire is sitting down thinking, shit, you know, what, is this right? Is this right? I love that. That keeps me going, knowing we're all the same. We may, you know, some of us know some things that others don't know, but if you keep at it, you're going to learn more things that you can use. So that would be my advice that I'm going to use again next week on my workshop.
And I just have to say one last Lynn and I connection. Madagascar. My grandfather's from Madagascar.
I thought I remembered that.
Can we get any more connected?
We
All
might have to do a little roots situation.
Just quickly, my questions, I have a few more, but audience, can we throw one out here from the group?
Anybody who have a question?
Something? We can't see you, but you might as well shout
I reserve
it
the
out.
right to claim the fifth, but you may ask. As lawyers, you say, can I ask? I said, you can ask whatever you want. That doesn't mean I have to answer. Yeah. But they do not. We have told them everything they want to know. We do have a question here.
I'm a teacher.
Yes.
And one of the curriculum things that Ellie has been trying and more nonfiction. So I'm trying to teach I'm teaching at-risk youth, and I'm just wondering what can I tell them to inspire them to enjoy poetry? Because when I say we're going to read poetry.
Okay, so as a non-teacher, which gives me so much basis to make this statement, I wonder, I won't say I'm sure, but I wonder if we shouldn't be teaching poetry backwards. Don't start with Gilgamesh, who cares, right? If you started out with some decent rap lyrics that they get, and then work backwards from that, or sideways with incorporating that with poets, I think at least their initial interest might be piqued. If you understand that we're all talking about language. At the end of the day, we're talking about language and how is it used.
Right.
And to me, I don't want to read Edgar Allan Poe if I'm 15. Really? What was wrong with this Raven thing? What was up with that, right? You don't want to start there. But if you started with something that they can identify with, that is language based, doesn't have to be even on the page when you start.
Totally.
I think that's why the spoken word is so popular and the kids love it, right? I can't really do it to good effect, but they can get into it and then say, and actually, so I'm in school. West Side Story is based on Romeo and Juliet. Then you think, oh, okay, this guy Shakespeare, what's the deal with him? So I just think I would be curious if teachers of poetry thought there was any validity to that. You do now.
I do. When I'm trying to explain what figurative language is, then I say
ask them about rap music, and then of course I get the ones who that says, no, I like old school rhythm and blues. They're like,
Yeah.
but I just let them know that in rap music that they never say the thing outright. They
Right.
actually use
They're using metaphor. They're using metaphor all the
Yeah,
time.
so
So yeah. I just think that it just strikes me that would be a way, because nobody wants to read poets that are wonderful, but if you start with them,
yeah, that's what. Thank you.
To publication. In that very first book, what was that process? What was that journey like?
well, that was David again. Actually, I had been taking workshops with him maybe 7, 8 years, and he said, "Well, it's time to have a book." I said, "Is that how it works? Aren't you supposed to have a plan? Aren't you supposed to have a project or a proposal?" He said, "Oh, just read the poems." And I said, "Yeah, I don't think so." Then I had heard Lucille Clifton, the amazing, wonderful Lucille
Yes.
Clifton, say when she has enough poems for a book, she spreads them out on the floor, and the ones that want to be together start gathering together. And I thought, this is fabulous,
I
right?
never forgot that she said
So
that.
I spread the poems on the floor. Silence. No one is saying anything to anyone. I'm saying, talk among yourselves, right? Yeah, okay. I think she was using a little metaphor there. Ding, 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 ding. But I put together, Beg No Pardon was originally the open hydrangea box. Perugia Press, which published my first book, said, "What does it mean?" I said, "Well, I don't know, but isn't it lovely?" They said, "Okay, Lynn, So the good news is a good editor will say, this order, I'm not sure. Do this poem, don't do that poem, put it in this order. They'll help you once you have those poems together, because it is, unless you hire someone, and some people do, to help you with the ordering and all of that stuff, Beg No Pardon. And I won't go on after this because I know people need to go on to other blatherings. I have a poem called Elegy for the Red Dress. The original version, the editor wanted to get rid of 2 stanzas, flip the remaining 2 stanzas, and get rid of the little coda at the end.
Oh.
I thought she was wrong, but I was too insecure to tell her that I thought she was wrong, because she'd been publishing books, I knew nothing. Published it that way. I would go to readings, I would read both versions without telling the audience which was which. And literally, without exception, they liked the original version. Not to be daunted, I then go to the wonderful What Books Press. They republish it as The Last Elegy for the Red Dress, which restores it to its original version.
Yes.
So I like to tell students that, because the poem is yours. You can do whatever the hell you want with it, right? A, and B, yes, listen to your editors, but also listen to your gut.
Yeah.
Right?
Exactly.
And it's hard to know. I don't have the route to knowing when it is. You're just going to have a little hit and miss and figure it out. But what I loved was, okay, I didn't get it right the first time, but Chuck and Gail said, yeah, it's cool. We'll do it this way. We'll do it this way. And I'm always so grateful to them that we could figure out a way to redo it.
Thank you.
Thank you all. You're amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
And there's a lovely piece of artwork on the front, and I just want to say that Lynne always has a nod to artists. I think fretwork, who was that?
That was Allison Sarr.
That was Allison Sarr. I mean, she's a heavyweight artist in Los Angeles. Beautiful piece. And she always reps the artist. So get her books. This one's beautiful. I've read it. I've read her other pieces. Take these home, gift them to friends. We have a poet laureate here. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you, Miss Tammy.
Thank you.
Miss
And thank you, Beyond Baroque.
Sister.